Italian Renaissance. Our supporting question is, how did the Renaissance people reflect their point of view on the world through art? So in the Renaissance time period, they focused on humanism, which consists of three things: encouragement of curiosity, individuality, and human potential. We can see these three things in art pieces. First of all, we can see encouragement of curiosity, since we see that the figures look more realistic, which shows that they study anatomy instead of religious aspects, which they did before. And that shows how they explored humans. We can also see individuality, since these human beings, they aren't very important people. Well, in that at that society, they weren't from a royal family or from the king's descendants or anything like that. They're just normal people, and it was at this time period where they realized that where you're born from doesn't matter as much. It's who you are and who you try to become. And we also see human potential, since the fact that they started sculpting and going to depth with their art piece, making perspective drawings, um, with all these different techniques, shows how they're trying to explore what they're capable of. And we can see this through their amazing artwork that looks extremely realistic. So we come to the question, how did the Renaissance people reflect their point of view on the world through art?
So the question I'm going to be answering right now is, what was the art made in the Renaissance centered around? So some important things for you to note is that after the Dark Ages, it's like all the Italian artists' methods and techniques were erased. So Italians felt like they had to retrace their steps to revive the art the Italians and the whole world loved. So this led to Italians reviving their art and making them about key ideas I'm going to mention right now. So the most important of these key ideas are naturalism, humanism, perspective drawing, and new media and techniques. So what do these key ideas mean? Naturalism in art is realistic objects that are placed in nature settings. For example, when you walk on any sidewalk in Europe, you see these sculptures on the sidewalks. These are examples of naturalism. Humanism is art that focuses on humans and their values. It's when artists make their art about truths and values, basically. Perspective drawing is when artists make 2D drawings look like they are 3D drawings. The new media and techniques are advancements Italian artists made to innovate their art in order to achieve naturalism. So a question I want you to answer in the multiple choice down below is, why did Italian artists make their art centered around the 4 key points I just mentioned?
So my supporting question is that how did the Italian economy help kickstart the Renaissance and help bring things like art and technology into the Renaissance? Well, let's first talk about the Italian economy before the Renaissance. So, like many other European nations, the Italian economy was absolutely horrible. And what made it worse is that compared to the rest of Europe, it did not have many natural resources. So, how did Italy go from one of the poorest regions in Europe to the most economically dominant? Well, that can be mainly attributed to the Crusades at its source. The Crusades were a series of conflicts between the Christians and the Muslims over the land of Jerusalem, the Holy Land. And due to this interaction between Christians and Muslims, the Italians were able to get some trade deals and get access to many goods from the East and many ideas from the East, which progressed their own nation. And even better, they were able to sell the goods they got from the East to the rest of Europe, gaining tremendous amounts of wealth. And they sold things like goods, ideas, art pieces, and even sometimes poems that the Arabs were revitalized and gave to the Italians. So, how did the better economy help drive the Renaissance? So, during the Dark Ages, almost all of a nation's wealth or a person's wealth went to feeding your family and improving your military. And because there wasn't enough wealth to care about things like art and technology, but due to the surplus of wealth, most notably in a city like Florence, Italy, they were able to now, they actually started to care. They could afford to care about art. They could afford to pay artists to make these grand masterpieces, like, for example, like Michelangelo's David, or the painting in the Hagia Sophia, things like these. And they could care about technology even more. They could progress themselves. And so, due to the surplus of wealth, many famous people, like, for example, Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci, were able to rise and create different ideas, create different sculptures and different art pieces. And the reemergence as well of the ancient Greek and Roman classics also drastically helped the Renaissance. And new art styles were developed, new art pieces were developed, many things due to that surplus of wealth. So overall, the Italian economy, due to the Italian economy drastically improving, people could afford to care about things other than food and the military. And so, due to them not being able to care about these things, they progressed themselves, they rebirthed themselves. And due to this surplus of wealth, Italy kickstarted the Renaissance of all of Europe, which brought Europe out of the thousand-year dark ages, and in my opinion, is the reason why Europe was the dominant continent for so long. Thank you.
How did religion and humanism affect their art from before and after the Renaissance? In the 14th century, Francesco Petrarca was known as the founder of humanism. Through his writing, he proclaimed how God has given humans their creativity and wit to be explored and used to their potential. Moving on from that, this intellectual movement, which helped the growth of the Renaissance, deeply affected many artists and their style of art. Christian humanism was a movement created in the Renaissance that was all about exploring humanity and diving into deep philosophical ideas about it while maintaining Christian faith. It had a great impact on the flourishment of the Renaissance as it changed many ideas like artwork. Eventually, this led to the Protestant Reformation through its art and many other factors. This artwork made before the Renaissance lacks depth and shade. It sticks to what the previous art has been like, and the color palette is bland. Artists creating similar artwork like this tend to stay within their boundaries or creativity. These kinds of works were made most likely for higher authorities or for religious reasons. This piece of art, made after the Renaissance, shows true depth, and the emotion displayed by the characters in this picture depict the revelation of the humanism idea. These artworks were now created with purpose and with symbolic hidden meanings. The colors used were much different and brighter. In a way, it was no longer taboo to explore and question beliefs, and the art encouraged that. This piece of artwork is called The Creation of Adam by Michelangelo. Here it's showing how God is giving life to the first man, Adam. Paintings like this also portray how humanism influenced art to show their relationship to their God. With this information, how did their religion and humanism affect their art from before and after the Renaissance?
The Italian Renaissance by De Cusa. So, first, our compelling question that we will be discussing is, why was art important in the Italian Renaissance? So, first, I'm going to talk a little bit about art in the Italian Renaissance. First, wealthy patrons used art to flaunt their power, meaning they used art to show off their power. The act of commissioning an artist to design a sculpture, a building, or a painting signified the patron's taste, ambition, and financial status. Next, the Medici family played a vital role. They were one of the most important people when it came to the Renaissance and politics, as they funded the art. Also, their funds produced such masterpieces like Sandro Botticelli's Birth of Venus, which was created between 1485 and 1486. Finally, they transformed Florence into a cultural powerhouse. The Medici family's authority, evincing their refinement, affluence, and commitment, led to transforming Florence into a cultural powerhouse. Notably, such significant patronage also shifted the status of artists in society. So, my supporting question is, who funded the artists' art and why did that help?